Mashalom Ka Mishpachah, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome again to another edition of Watchmen of the Faith Ministries. My name is Kasada Bar. Now, first and foremost, before we get started, we must give all praises, respect, and honor to the Father, Ab Yahuwah, for sending his ultimate love gift, Yahushua HaMashiach, who was and is that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Yashra'al. And for that, we say, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Excuse me, Hallelujah. Now, I said a few things in my opening statement regarding the ultimate sacrifice, all right? And whenever I say the ultimate sacrifice, I'm referring to Yahushua HaMashiach. I'm also using words like an atoning sacrifice, all right? So that is very, very important. So I just want to elaborate on that a little bit so that there's no misunderstandings on what I'm trying to present in this ministry. Now, there seems to be a continuing falling away with the whole overstanding of the Messiah. All right, a lot of brothers and sisters are now saying that we don't need a Messiah; we can just go directly to the Father, and that atones for our sins. But according to the festivals of Yahuwah, that's simply not true. My argument is this: the reason why brothers and sisters are falling away from the teachings of Yahushua, prophetic shadow pictures of the Messiah, is because they don't have a strong foundation in what we call the Tanakh. All right, when I say the Tanakh, I mean the Torah, the T representing instructions, the N representing Nebuim, which is now the prophets, the Ketuvim, which is the writings. All right, so they don't have a strong foundation on the Torah. So by the time they get into the latter scripts, by the time they get to the Brit Hadashah, they're done, all right? Because they didn't build a strong foundation from the very beginning. Now, when I talk about a foundation, what I believe the problem is that, like for me, for example, what's conclusive for me might not be conclusive for you. What became conclusive to me is Bereshit, the 15th chapter, meaning this, is that when the Father makes a covenant, all right? Again, when the Father makes a covenant, the covenant is made by the shedding of blood. This is what's explained to us in Bereshit, the 15th chapter, meaning this. If a covenant is made with the shedding of blood, if one of the parties break the covenant, how does the process of reconciling the relationship begin to take place? Because again, if it started out as a blood covenant, where we see now a prophetic shadow picture of the Messiah who's talking with Abraham, and Abraham is being told now to get a certain amount of animals, to slaughter these animals. They are placed upon the altar. And what happens now is that Abraham, which is our father, he's going to represent the nation of Israel, because the laws went from Abraham, Isaac to Jacob. We see Abraham now falling asleep. When Abraham fell asleep, a smoking furnace went between the pieces. All right, those slaughtered animals there. That means now is that whoever breaks this contract, all right, is supposed to die, is to be slaughtered the way that those animals were being slaughtered. Abraham fell asleep, which is a prophetic shadow picture of what was going to happen to the nation of Yashra'al later on down the line. The nation of Yashra'al was going to fall asleep and break the law, statutes, and commandments. But this doesn't solve the problem. Like I said initially, all right? This is a blood covenant. The covenant that the Father makes requires blood. If blood was used to make the contract, okay, by default, it should be like a no-brainer. In order to reconcile, in order to get back into covenant relationship with the Father again, bloodshed must take place. That should be kind of easy, but the reason why it's not easy because certain brothers and sisters don't have a strong foundation in the scriptures. All right, so again, if you don't have that strong foundation, by the time you read later or latter verses and chapters, you're going to miss the boat. All right, and by the time you get to the new covenant, okay, or the Brit Hadashah, and the word Brit means to cut, you're going to miss the point. All right, this is talking about a marriage from beginning to end. And marriages are made by the shedding of blood. The way that an Ish goes into his Isha, the way that it was originally done, all right, when he goes into the woman, the sign of the covenant was this white sheet with the blood on it. All right, so it's kind of easy once we get a strong foundation. But when brothers are all over the place, that's where it gets complicated. All right. So again, this is a blood covenant. It was made through blood in order for it to be for us to be reconciled back to the Father. The Father had to send his ultimate love gift, and this ultimate love gift was Yahushua HaMashiach. And Yahushua HaMashiach brings us back into covenant relationship with the Father again. All right. That's my short, quick Kasadabah version. All right. And I just want to go to a scripture because everything that I say must be backed up with scripture. All right. So we're going to go with the book of Devarim, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start at the 6th verse. It says, "For you are a set apart people unto Yahuwah your Elohim." All right. When we read the scriptures, we must make sure that we dissect every single word. All right. It says your Elohim. You are set apart people, and it's talking about your Elohim. All right. Yahuwah, your Elohim, has chosen you to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So the nation of Yashra'al is chosen above all of the other nations. So what the bride has to do now is figure out or read in the contract what is her responsibility. All right? Because again, this is a blood covenant. Whoever breaks the covenant must die. So blood is very, very important. Verse 7. Yahuwah did not set his love, upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people. And again, the operative thing that we should be looking at in verse 7 is the word love. All right, verse 8. But because Yahuwah loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he has sworn to your fathers, and that's the reason why I brought out now the book of Bereshit, the 15th chapter. All right, we have here now from Genesis all the way to Revelation, even to present day, we have the Father still, okay, upholding his end of the contract, his oath that he swore to our father Abraham. He's still upholding his end of the contract. And this is the reason why we say now we are obligated to uphold our end of the contract, because this is a wedding. From Genesis to Revelation, like I said, this is a wedding. This is a wedding contract. And wedding contracts are bound by blood. But because Yahuwah loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he has sworn unto our fathers, with Yahuwah brought out with a mighty hand and redeemed us out of the house of bondage from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So we have now the word oath and we have the word redeem. What does the word redeem means? Because before we get to the word redeem, we have the word brought out. There was brought out, okay, because they were redeemed. How was the nation of Yashra'al redeemed? The nation of Yashra'al was finally redeemed by the shedding of blood. Meaning that the firstborns of the Egyptians, both male, okay, and their cattle, all right, had to die. This was the purchase price for the nation of Israel. So again, this is all based upon dam, blood. And then we have further indications on what this whole thing is about when we begin to look at the nation of Yashra'al was given a commandment, all right? What they needed to do now was take the blood, all right, of a lamb, all right? And the first, I'm just going to say this now, the first animal that was used, okay, as a prophetic shadow picture that redeemed the nation of Israel was a male lamb, all right? A male lamb was used of a year old, all right? And the blood of that lamb was posted upon the doorpost, all right? And the death angels flew over the house of Israel because the nation of Israel is going to now be our firstborn, all right? She's going to now be a Bikor. Out of all of the nations, like I brought out earlier in Deuteronomy 7 and 6, if there's a whole host, okay, of nations, and the Father chooses one nation, that nation is considered a first fruit, a bikor, a bikurim. And so this is what the Father is doing. He's shedding blood for your redemption. Without the shedding of blood, there's no redemption. There's no remission of sins. Pretty easy. But again, if we don't build that strong foundation from the beginning, by the time we get to the so-called new covenant, we're going to miss it. And again, the word brit, hadashah, the word brit means to cut. Okay, so now we see now after the death and resurrection of the Messiah, okay, and that blood is so important, this now begins the walk of us now coming back into covenant relationship with the Father. Devarim 8 and 1. All the commandments which I, Yahuwah, command you this day shall you observe to do, that you may live. Again, all the commandments which I command you this day shall you observe to do, that you may live, and multiply, and go in and possess the land which Yahuwah swore unto your father. So again, right now the nation of Israel, Yashra'al, has been scattered amongst the four corners of the earth. Why? Because she broke the laws, statutes, and commandments. She was chosen to be a special people above all the other people on the planet Earth. And being that she was chosen above all the other people on the planet Earth, this means that you now have a responsibility now to the other nations. And your responsibility now was to be this light, okay? To be this light, and the light is the Torah. The Torah is the instructions to the other nations. That was your responsibility. This was our responsibility. But we reneged on the contract, and so now the Father has a covenant lawsuit against the nation of Israel. All right, we broke the law, statutes, and commandments. So that's my quick Kasadaba version of the importance of blood. All right. Now, with that being said, what we want to do is go into today's topic. All right. The title of today's show is going to be called "A Clinical Approach to Bereshit." Genesis. All right. We're going to look into the clinical, or we're going to look at a clinical approach to the book of Bereshit. Genesis, the first chapter, verse 1. That's what we're going to be doing today. And the reason why I'm doing this show is because I made a statement in the last show that I did that there was another Adam, or there was a primitive man actually running alongside Adam. And I just want to make sure that everybody is clear on what I'm saying. But before I get there, all right, there's a few things that I have to do. All right, I just don't want to jump right into it. I want to start from the beginning and walk our way down to what's actually going on here. All right, now a clinical approach to the book of Genesis on Bereshit. The way that we're going to do this class today is we're going to look at it from a clinical approach. That means no allegories. All right, no supernatural approaches. However, understanding that everything that the Father does entail now spiritual applications. All right, we have to make sure that that's understood. So spiritual applications is going to be very important in today's class. No magical thinking, just reading what the word says, and we will be using definitions to elaborate on the verses. All right, that's going to be very important. We have to do that. So spiritual applications and using some allegories is going to be, we're going to have to go there. All right. It's just that, you know, when we begin to look at the scriptures, when we have the Peshat level, which is like the basic reading, and then we have the Remez, which shows like a little hint, a little clues in scriptures, and then we have the Drash, where we begin to look at some of the hidden meanings behind it, and then we have the side level, which is like the mystery level, like, you know, the upper launch part of a reading the scripture, and it's basically coming from a rabbinical style of teaching. But it is factual, so there are different levels to understanding the scripture. So again, I just want to look at it from a clinical approach, and I don't want to use, you know, a whole lot of hard thinking with this whole thing here, just to make sure that everything is correct. All right. Now, first of all, what we want to do is that we want to identify these characters that I have on the board here. All right. That's going to be very important. So the first one is a bet. All right. The second one is a resh, the aleph, the sheen, the yod, the tha. All right. Then we have another ba, a resh, a aleph, lamed, hey, ya, mem, sofi. All right. That's the final. We have a aleph and a tav. We have a hey, a sheen, a mem, a yod, a mem, sofi. All right. We have a u, a aleph and a tav, or a tha. We have a hey, an aleph, a resh, and a tazah, sofi, a final. All right. So what this says is Bereshit, Bara, Alahim. We have an Aleph Tav. We have Hashemayim. We have a U, which means and. We have another Aleph Tav, and we have Aha, which means the Aratz. So that says in English, we have in the beginning, created Elohim, Aleph Tav. We have the heavens and the earth. All right. And what I have underlined here, we have the Aleph Tav, and I have an U, Aleph Tav, where U is actually attached to the Aleph Tav. And what translators have done with the Aleph Tav, they said that this is considered an untranslated character. All right, an untranslated character, and we're going to be dealing with that in just a few, whether or not that's an untranslated. Those are untranslated characters, and they're saying this based upon their Hebrew grammar. All right, their Hebrew grammar, and this is rabbinical teachings. All right, I'm going to be using that word a lot. Rabbinical teachings. All right. So what I also want to do, okay, I'm going to erase this here a little bit so we can get down to the meat of today's class. Now, let me start off by saying that this style of writing is considered Aramaic or modern Hebrew Jewish script. All right. Again, this is considered modern Hebrew Aramaic script. You might even see that's Jewish script. Now, prior to this style of writing, all right, the Hebrew alphabet went this way. Aleph. Ta, Ya, Ka, Lamed, Mem, Na, Sa, Pa, Taza, Kwa, Ra, Sheen, and a Tau. All right, and that should be 22 Hebrew characters. All right. Kind of double check, make sure I didn't miss any. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Those are your 22 Hebrew characters. And this form of writing here is called Canaanite Phoenician or Ancient Hebrew. All right, Canaanite Phoenician writing or Ancient Hebrew. And you might see this. I'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so the reason why I'm bringing all of this out is because something has come to my attention, and I'm sure it has come to a lot of your attention also, is that why this when it was originally written like this? My argument is this, is that language, all right, writing and culture means everything. Writing, language, and culture explains or defines a people. In my travels, whenever I see this style of writing, or where when a lot of people see this style of writing, there's an image that comes into their head. Now that image is those that are in Israel today who say they are Jews. All right. This style of writing is usually associated with them. When I begin to write this language here, this alphabet here, this takes you back further than those who are saying that they're Jews today. This takes you a little bit further back. And when you begin to look at this style of writing, okay, this is not a racial show here. It puts you in the mindset of people that look like myself. All right. So this lets us know that the original Hebrews, all right, looked like me. All right. They had melanin in their skin. They wasn't melanin recessive. Now again, this is not a racial show. All right. What I'm trying to do now is take back or begin to look at the scriptures from its proper perspective, which is a Hebraic perspective, and understanding now that the original inhabitants of that whole region, all right, were they look like myself. All right. So that's going to be very important. And so there's a hijacking that's going on here. All right. And again, I'm just trying to put everything back in its proper perspective so that we can look at the scriptures for what they really are. All right. Looking at the scriptures for what they really are here. Now, again, like I made argument, is that writing, language, and culture describes a people. To elaborate on that, I'm going to be looking at a book called Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. All right. And the first thing that we're going to go to is page 221. And then we're going to go to some good old scriptures that back every single thing up, because that's going to be the key. 221. 221. All right, and I'm going to be reading from a caption from a guy by the name of Carter G. Woodson. All right, Carter G. Woodson. Excuse me. Philosophers have long conceived that every man has two educations: that which is given to him, and the other that which he gives himself. What does that mean to us Hebrews? That which is given to him, my fight now is against rabbinical teachings. All right. As we begin this walk back to the Father, a lot of us are basing our walk upon rabbinical teachings. All right. And I look at rabbinical teachings as something that's been given to us, all right? And I'm here to challenge some of the rabbinical teachings. That which is given to him, and the other which he gives himself. The other that he gives himself is the one that he personally researches on his own, all right? This is what we must do. We must challenge all rabbinical teachings, all writings we must challenge. And the reason why we must challenge these things is because there's a major campaign, okay, with hiding or keeping a certain ethnic people down. All right, that's evident. And again, I'm not making this show a racial show, but a lot of effort has been put forward to submerge or to destroy a people, just the way that the scripture says. So again, there's two forms of education: that which is given to him, and the other which he gives himself. Of the two kinds, the latter is far by more desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in man, he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourish the mind, like that which we teach ourselves, which is different. All right. So once we begin to teach ourselves, get back to our own language, our culture, and our writings, the better off we'll be. All right. So again, that's the reason why I brought out these two different styles of writings, all right, when we begin to look at rabbinical teachings where they set up grammar rules. And a grammar rule is this, is where they begin to say that the aleph and the tav is considered untranslated characters. And we now find ourselves not writing this way, but writing this way. We have to ask ourselves why. All right? A little bit more. Carter G. Woodson brings out another good point. He says, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. Now, he wasn't speaking from a Hebraic perspective. I'm speaking from a Hebraic perspective, meaning this. Again, we must challenge rabbinical teachings. All right, there's a lot of problems going on with that. All right, a whole lot. All right, one of the communities that I tend to lean toward is the Qumran community. All right, because the Qumran community, they also had problems with rabbinical teachings. All right, Yahusha, when he was around 2,000 years ago or so, he had issues with rabbinical teachings. All right, so I just want everybody to keep on their guard. All right, don't get so comfortable with all of the other different translations, the King James versions and things like that. What I'm asking you to do, all right, is to make sure that you try to dissect each and every word. All right, make sure that it makes sense so that you won't be that you won't fall into rabbinical teachings. All right, another thing I want to bring out is in this book is page 232. All right. 232, where image is everything. Image is everything. All right. All right. Here, where my pen is at, we have a picture of Queen. So her name is Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor there is playing a role as the Queen of Egypt. All right. And we know that Cleopatra was a woman of color. But what happens now is that when you're being taught by your oppressor is not going to show you in the greatest of light. There seems to be some people in certain ethnic groups, all right, who want to depress or suppress everybody's culture and say that they're everything. And so there was a time where a lot of us believed that the ancient Egyptians, the Hebrews, were actually so-called white people, all right? But through research, challenging rabbinical thinking, we now know that those people had melanin in their skin. They looked like I do, all right? The Hebrews looked like me. Moses was a man of color. Dawood was a man of color. Haran was a man of color. I mean, it's just a fact. Okay. And again, challenging rabbinical thinking because a lot of things have been changed, and you can see that things have been changed even down to the alphabet. All right, the alphabet it's been changed. And again, I just want everybody to do their homework. And one more picture I'm going to show, and then we're going to get to the scripture about it. Is I'm going to go to page 241, and again, the book, The Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. All right, we have a little, looks like here, a little Israelite boy there. He looks in the mirror, and he don't see an image of himself. All right, he don't see an image of himself. He sees somebody else, and my argument is that this has been instilled in us from a little boy or from when we were babes. So it is very important for us to get back to our original style of writing. Not so much I have a problem with this style of writing, it's just that image is everything. And again, my findings is that when you begin to look at this language here, automatically, we think of a certain ethnic people, but when we look at this here, we get another picture. And if this picture is the better, let's stick with that picture if we can. All right, that's just my whole argument there. I'm gonna go to the book of 79. Now I'm going to Psalm 70, the 79th chapter. Let's see if we can pull anything else from out of this to make sure that everything is scriptural, and I'm not trying to make this thing a racial thing at all. O Yahuwah, the heathens are come into thine inheritance. Your holy or your set apart temple have they defiled. They have laid Jerusalem on heaps. The dead bodies of your servants have they given to be meats unto the fowls of the heaven, the flesh of your saints unto the beasts of the earth. So we need to be able to identify who are they that are doing all this. Who are the they that came into the temple, that came into the sanctuary and defiled it? When they defiled it, what did they do? Did they set up their own images in there? Did they take down the original images that looked like myself and began to do away with the original inhabitants of the land? Is somebody claiming your heritage? And if so, who and why? We know why, because the original people, all right, broke the laws, statutes, and commandments. That's the reason why I went to the book of Devarim 7. I read 6 to 8, and then I read from 8 to 1, trying to let us know is that you're a set apart people because you broke the law, statutes, and commandments. We are now scattered amongst the four corners of the earth. So when we begin to read now Psalm, the 79th chapter, it talks about somebody coming into the set apart place of Yahuwah. And when it says coming into the set apart place, we can even take this a step further. The set apart place, all right, being that this body is a hakal, is a temple, somebody has come in and planted, all right, a diverse seed in our thinking. And so now when we begin to think now, we no longer look at ourselves as the original inhabitants of the land. We look at the other people as being the originals, and that's not true. All right, so again, we're challenging rabbinical thinking here. All right, and one more script I want to go to. I'm going to go to 83. 83, it says, keep not thou silent, O Elohim, plural. Hold not thy peace and be not still, O Yahuwah, singular. For lo, thy enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken counsel against your people and consulted against the hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. So if the nation of Israel has been cut off from being a nation, this means that they will no longer be able to identify this style of writing. And even if they're using this style of writing, they still will not be able to connect that this was the original style of writing, and this style of writing puts in an imagery of a certain ethnicity type of people. All right. And so that when we shouldn't be worrying about now when our little ones are looking into the mirror where they're seeing something other than themselves. And looking at now the two forms of education, there's one being taught to him and there's one that he does on his own. And the one that we should be doing on our own is challenging, again, rabbinical thinking. Okay, that's enough scriptures on that. That's enough scriptures on that, all right? Another point that should be brought to the table regarding the Abri language. This is the Abri language, okay? And this is also the Abri language, or alphabet. It's just that the forms of writing are different. And if something else happens to this language, and I'm going to read on it right now, it's vowels. There were vowels in the original writings. There were vowels in the original writings, all right? However, about 1,000 years ago, a group called the Masoretes, spelled M-A-S-O-R-I-T-E-S. Do your research on that, all right? A group called the Masoretes created a system of dots and dashes called nikuds. Nikuds is spelled N-I-K-K-U-D-S. On your own time, look up nikuds, all right? And they placed these dashes and nikuds, all right, below the consonants to represent vowels. All right? Meaning that if you have the word, say for instance, like Yavo, Yavo. First of all, this va here is changed through through dashes and nakuds, because this means that he is coming. He is coming. This is what this means. This is this ba here. This is this ba here. But that ba changes again through nakuds and the geshes. Now, if I was to put a for example, if I was to put a olive, okay? If I was to put an olive where this ya is, if I was to put an olive, that would mean I will come. I will come. All right? So we have a ya, he will come, a olive, I will come. All right, so again, when we begin to look at Hebrew grammar, nouns and pronouns and things like that, those things are to become very, very important. And again, the reason why I'm saying all of this, because we're challenging now rabbinical teachings, all right? And so those Hebrew vowels are, we have the aleph in the ancient writings without nakuds, without the geshes, okay? We had the aleph as a vowel. We have the hey as a vowel. We have the u as a vowel. And we had the yod or the ya as a vowel. All right, those were our vowels in the ancient writings before the nakuds. All right, and again, the Masoretes were responsible for all of that. All right, so again, this means Bereshit, in the beginning, created Elohim, the Aleph Tav, the Shamayim, which means the heavens, and this is untranslated. The Ha means the, Aratz means earth. Now, let's continue on with some issues that I'm having with rabbinical teachings. All right? Rabbinical teachings. And again, this form of writing, I'm not going crazy over. It's just that it's going to mean something different when you go, if you start it here and then go here, and I'm going to show that. The first thing that we should notice, we should take notice of, is the first letter is enlarged. When you look into Hebrew, all right, we see that the first letter is enlarged. The second thing that we should say now is, why is the letter enlarged when there are no capital letters? There's no periods, no question marks, no exclamation points. There's no parentheses in Hebrew. I mean, it's just not there. We didn't do that, all right? Now, to answer that question, we need to go to Matthew 5 and 18 to try to figure out why that letter is enlarged, all right? So what we need to first know is that this is called an anomaly, all right? An anomaly is... An anomaly is associated with tittles and jots. All right, so let's go to the book of Matthew 5:18 and see if we can get a further explanation on this here. This is what Yashra'al says in 5:18. It says, "Think not." So think not means don't even think it. Don't even think that I am Hayah, I am come to destroy the law, the Torah, the instructions, don't even think it, or the prophets, all right, the Nebuim. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill the Torah, the instructions. For verily I say unto you, till or until, heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all be fulfilled. All right, so that's going to be very, very important. Let me read on down just a little bit more. Watch this. Verse 19. Whosoever, and whosoever means whosoever, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever should do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of the Malkut of Shamayim. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're pushing the good news and looking at, again, this bet right here, that bait right there is an anomaly and it's called a jot or a tittle. And in no wise should anyone be trying to take away from any of the words of Yahuwah. Meaning this is that each character in Hebrew has a grammatical purpose. And each stroke, okay, is also very important. So again, when we begin now to change this form of, we go from this form of writing to this form of writing, we're going to have to ask ourselves, why is this being done? All right? Why is that being done? And again, the next thing that we should take notice of is the bet. In this letter also, as a preposition, okay, and that's going to be very important. It means in. All right? It means in. Or inside something, to abode, or to tabernacle. So this letter is called a bait. Bait or bayit. Meaning house or temple. But not just any temple, all right? But the temple of Yahuwah. This is what this means right here. That, so in a picture graph, all right, what I'm saying is that it should look like a house, all right? It should look like a temple. It should look like something set apart where something lives inside of, because this word means in. This bait or this bar is supposed to represent a house, all right? But I'm here to say that this doesn't look like a house. And the reason why it doesn't look like a house because the letter has been changed. This right here is a house. That looks more like a house. Like that. That looks like a house. As in the temple of Yahuwah. So we see in the beginning, the Father is creating a house. All right? A bait. As in, like Bethel, okay? Beth or Bath, Beth, and then we just put the L in it. It just means the house of El, or the house of Yahuwah, being that El will be singular here. So we see in the beginning, the Father built a house. And the word in is going to be very important because if he's building a house, someone is supposed to live inside of the house, all right? Let's prove that. Let's go to 1 Peter 2 and 5. All right, 1 Peter 2 and 5. We're going to knock it down today. 1 Peter 2 and 5. You also as living stones. So what we have here now is a foundation. And the doctrine that we preach is a sure foundation. Upon this foundation, there's an house. This looks more like a pyramid than anything, all right? A pyramid, but don't get scared, okay? We're not going into comedic science. But this is a picture of a pyramid. This is also a picture of a door, all right? We have the Dalet and we have the Beit. If this is a house, if this is a temple, and not just any temple, but the temple of Yahuwah, in order to go in, there has to be a door. So the path is on a foundation that leads to the house, not just any house, but the house of El, as in like Bethlehem, a Bethlehem, the house of bread. This is what this is. And it has to be a door in order for you to enter. And this is be like the Hebrew word direct, or the way of the walk to the door, go through the door inside of the temple. So this is what was created in the very beginning, was a foundation that leads to the temple, to the pyramid, to the door. All right? Now, you also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house. So being that this is taking place in Shamayim, because it says Bereshit, okay, created Elohim, Aleph Tav, the Shamayims. So we're talking about there needed to be an organization first in the Shamayims. So we're talking about the building of a house in heaven first. All right. But you also, as living stones, are built up a spiritual house. So we're also a hakal, a temple. All right. We're also a temple, a spiritual house, and set apart priest, or has holy priest, or Kohen Kadal, a priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifice acceptable to Yahuwah by Yahushua HaMashiach. All right, so these living stones makes up a body. As this spiritual house makes up a body. And with inside this house, or the building of this house, consists of Elohims. All right, and we're going to show what's going to happen later on with that picture there. The next thing that we want to go to is Ephesians 2:19. Ephesians 2:19. Here we go, Ephesians 2:19. Now therefore, you are no more, let me see, maybe I should go up a little bit. Let's see. Let's start with 17. No, let's go 18. Let's go 16. And that he might reconcile both unto Yahuwah in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby, and came and preached shalom to you which were afar off, and to them which were near. So we know this is a prophetic shadow picture talking about northern and southern kingdom. Verse 18. For through him we both have, and we have access by one set apart spirit into the Father. Verse 19. Now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints, and of the household of Yahuwah. The household of Yahuwah. In the beginning, the Father is building a house. With inside of this house, there's a group of Elohims. But we are also houses being built up. So as it is in heaven, so shall it be here on earth. And once we get to that point of overstanding now, where we can now elevate our level of thinking, we are now acceptable, okay, to the Father to also offer up spiritual gifts, because we are now living stones. And these living stones are built upon a foundation. And this is what's happening now, because the nation of Israel broke the law, statutes, and commandments. And what the Father is now doing now is that he is saying, listen, through the death and resurrection of the Messiah, you are now living stones being built up, a spiritual temple, okay, so that now we can be in unison with the Father and the Son. All right. I no longer call you servants. I now call you friends, because now as friends, you know exactly what the Father came to teach me to tell you. I'm building up now a body, a nation of people, the way that it was done in the very beginning. All right. Hope that's not confusing. If there's any questions, just get back with me and we'll elaborate on that a little bit more. So basically what I'm saying here on Yashra'al is that this house, all right, in order to get back into covenant relationship with the Father, we must walk the path. And at the path, there is a pyramid. This is shape of a pyramid or a tent. If you're comfortable with that, the shape of a tent, Okay, and within this tent, this house, this bait, obviously there would have to be a door, the dalit, to go in to enter into the house. So that's what we want to do. We want to enter into the house. We want to enter into covenant relationship with the Father. Okay. What is also interesting about the bait is the way that it's written in comparison with the pictograph Hebrew. The ancient Hebrew is more of a symbol resembling, like I said, a pyramid on a landscape. And what I'm going to do here now is show some similarities. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. I'm going to go to page 170. All right, because this whole thing with Kemetic science, I mean, that we're going to have to really even begin to look into that and presenting our cause properly. Okay, with the whole thing with language. Now, this is on page 172. When we begin to look at some of the older writings, we have the Kemetic language. We have in the pictograph, we have the picture of an olive. Where are we at here? Right here. That's the olive. That's Kemetic, Hebrew, the same symbol. And then we have the picture of an ox. We have the bait, similar to the bait in the Phoenician Canaanite. The Gimel, the same, similar to in Hebrew. The Dalet, the Hay, all of it's basically the same. All right, basically the same. And my argument again is that when we begin to take away from the ancient writings, all right, it begins to distort who the original people were. And again, we have to challenge rabbinical thinking. Meaning this now also is that when we look at the first symbol, the first Hebrew alphabet, we see, let me just erase this right here. Just bear with me a little bit. The first letter in the ancient Hebrew, or the Canaanite Phoenician, is an aleph. And it's like that. All right? But when we go to this style of writing, the Jewish script or the Aramaic script, the modern Hebrew, it looks now like this. That's an aleph. So the question now becomes, does this look like an ox's head, or does this look like an ox's head? For me, this looks more like an ox's head, and the ox represents strength, authority, a strong leader. I don't get that when I look at the Hebrew aleph like this, the modern Hebrew. I don't get that. And so again, when you begin to change characters, all right, you're now changing the whole diameter of things. Everything is being changed now. And once something is changed, you lose its true influence on the language. And this is what I believe that this is actually doing, because you're beginning to change things. All right. So now let's do away with that here. Now, obviously now, the bait or the ba is not the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet. We went to the whole thing now that this is called an anomaly. This is also a bait. It means inn, it means house, it means family, it means abode. It means all those things. So the first letter, again, though, is an aleph. And the second letter is an ab, excuse me, a ba. So we have here now, we have ab or ab, which means father. All right. So again, we have the strong leader in the beginning building a house. All right. He's building a house. That is very important when we begin to understand Hebrew. But watch this. When we begin to now look at the Masoretic vowel points, nakuds, system of things, they're saying that this letter is silent. And then I'm going to have to ask myself, well, if it's silent, then how do we describe it if it's silent? I don't even look right on the board here, but just 1 second, Yashra'al. 1 second. 1 second here. 1 second. Let me just get some of this debris off. Okay, so when we begin to look at this letter here, that aleph here, they say that that's silent. And my argument is that that letter is not silent. Okay, that makes a sound, and this is supposed to represent strength, leadership, and authority. And again, like I said earlier, I can see that because that looks more like an ox's head. And when I get into now, when I put this aleph in front of the bait, I have the word ab, which means father. So we're now identifying, okay, who is building the house. The aleph is building the house, and the aleph is, okay, would be Yahuwah, giving now the charge and command that everything be done in his authority, which is now Yahusha. Okay, so now when we see now where the Messiah said, listen, I come in my Father's name. So he's not doing this on his own accord. This is all being done in the name of the Father. So now we have the aleph in front of the bait. So we now have the strong leader, okay, who's controlling the house is Yahusha HaMashiach. Now, another thing that I wanted to look at with the language is this, is that when we combine these two words here, the bet, the resh, and the aleph. Oh no, not even the bet, the resh, and aleph. That's the bet and the resh. That word bar. They say that word bar means son, right? Oh boy. The word ben, I can go with ben meaning son, or even better yet, I'm saying even bon, which actually be the bet and the noon. I need some more space here. Will actually be the bait and the noon. Bon. But because of Nakuds, okay, the Geshes, people are going to argue me to death. Aki, that word is Ben or Bane, okay, because of Nakuds. My argument is that I'm trying to challenge, all right, rabbinical thinking, all right, because there's a lot of problems with that because the word bar, okay, technically doesn't mean son because the word is Aramaic. It's not even Hebrew, all right? So bar, again, is Aramaic, is not Hebrew. The word from my research should actually be ban, or if you want to say bane, okay, bane, ben, but me personally, ban, and that means son. So the next thing that I needed to do now is look at another word. Okay, make sure that we understand exactly what's going on here. I don't want to confuse anybody. And this is all relating to now how things were done in the beginning, because again, I talked about there was another creation before Adam. All right, so there was another creation here. Now, Rosh, or again, some Rosh. Let's look at that. Rosh. No, Aki is Resh. And they're absolutely correct. It would be Resh based upon grammar rules that was set up by the Masoretes. All right, it would be Resh. My argument is that, you know what? They say, well, Aki, listen, they're both saying the same thing, right? It both means head, right? Okay, head. All right, so we have in the beginning a strong leader, which is the Aleph, okay, created a house. All right, and with inside of this house, all right, he's looking to choose a head out of the reshit. He's looking to create a head or a leader out of the reshit. Now, reshit is associated with the word first fruits or bikurim. So what we have now, from a Hebraic perspective, the word reshit means the best from a collection of things. All right? The best from a collection of things. So right now, that gives more character and definition to the word bait. All right? Because this is talking about building a house. With inside of this house, I'm saying is that there are Elohims, okay, or Elohim, but Elohim living in this house. And what the Father is doing now, being that the word reshit means the best from a collection of things, and he's looking for a resh, he's actually choosing the best from a collection of things. All right? He's choosing a head to run this foundation. So when we begin to read the scriptures, we have the Father, the Son, and the nation of Yashra'al. And the responsibility of the nation of Israel now, because Israel is also now a reshit, okay, from a collection of people, all right? And Israel is now a resh also, because you're the head of the other nations, like I brought out in Deuteronomy 7 and 6 down to 8, where and your responsibility now is to be this light to the world. And so now this resh, who I'm saying now is Yahushua HaMashiach, all right, he is now the light of this body here. This whole temple here, he's the chief cornerstone. This is who he is. Now, Sadaba, you did a whole lot of talking. All right, let's see some scriptures. Let's go to the book of. See, do I want to go there now? Yeah, let's do that now. Let's go to the book of Zephaniah. No, excuse me. Let's go to 49. Bereshit 49. That's what I want to do. Bereshit 49. Bereshit 49. Here we go. And Jacob called his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and hear, you sons of Jacob. So what we have here now, the nation of Israel, a set apart people. We have Joseph now calling the word Korah. He's gathering his sons, first fruits, okay, first fruits now, and he's going to tell them what's going to happen to them in the last days. Verse 3. Reuben, thou art my firstborn. That word firstborn is the Hebrew word bikor or bikurim. You know what? Bikor. Because bikurim would mean plural, but we can apply it because we're talking about a collection. The word reshit means the best from a collection of things. And so Reuben would be like the head. He's the firstborn. He's the bikor. All right? Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning, the reshit, bereshit, okay? Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellent of dignity and the excellency, of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou hast, he went up to his father's couch and everything like that. So he lost his inheritance. So we know the rest of the story with Joseph. Joseph, two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. And we see now where Ephraim and Manasseh, were actually grafted in. Okay, the word grafted was very important. They were grafted into the household here now. And we know that Manasseh was the oldest, but Ephraim got the blessing. So we see now where we see the whole grafting process there. But I just wanted to bring out now, but the word beginning, in first fruits, and being from a collection of things. And so that's what's happening actually here, where we have the Father building a house. Okay, we have the word reshit, which means first fruits. And, you know, we have a collection of things, and the Father is going to build, he wants a head, or a Rosh or a Resh. And that Rosh or Resh is the Messiah. Okay, that's who that is. Then we get to the next word. Again, if there's any problems, any questions, anything that I'm saying, you know, just hit me up, you know, and I get right back to you, and I can elaborate on it a whole lot more. Best believe me. All right. Then we have the word bara. Okay, the word bara means create. Okay, it means to create. Create. Now, that word create is so important, okay, because that word create, we're talking about haya. It's associated with that word haya. Which means, haya means to live. So we have here now, haya, create, to live. So we have a creation story going on here. The Father is responsible for life, and we're going to get into a little bit later, all right, in chapter 2, where we see now something happening where after the creation story, we see now life, haya, being created. We see now between verses 1 and 2, some type of catastrophe happened. Okay, a major catastrophe happened because we're going to begin to look at the words tohu and bohu, where we're talking about void and emptiness, and we have to go into those two words a little bit more deeper. But for today, I just wanted to elaborate, and in the next show I do our springboard. The next show that I do, I'll springboard off of haya. But the word bara means create, which is associated with life, and so in the beginning, okay, or in a beginning, or because not at the beginning. We have haya, the Father, the Aleph, created, okay, and a house. And from a collection of Elohims, he chose one to be the head. And the word create is associated with the word haya, which is life. And then we have the next word, which is Elohim. So in this house, they're consisted again, mighty ones, and Yahusha is the head of the mighty ones. All right. And last but not least, the Aleph Tav. All right. The Aleph Tav, they say, is an untranslated character, and they don't know what it means. It doesn't mean anything. And that's based upon grammatical rules that were set up by the rabbinical church or school of thought. When you start to get into guys like, what's this guy's name? What's this guy's name? It'll come back to me. This guy's name. He's a real popular Maimonides. Yeah, he's a real big time rabbinical scholar that the so-called Jews acknowledge a lot. Okay, but they say that the Aleph Tav is an untranslated character, and but we as Hebrews, we have to challenge that. Okay, because we have a situation, Yashra'al. If that character means something, then we're going to have to be able to see why. That Aleph Tav is used 668 times in the book of Bereshit alone. 668 times. And with the U attached to it, okay, is 210 times. So my argument is going to be now, because everything means something in Hebrew. Everything means something. When we get 668 and we get 210, this is the Aleph symbol, and this is the Aleph symbol attached to the U. We have a total of 878 times, based upon grammatical not grammatical, but rabbinical teachings of this symbol, they say that it means nothing, that is an untranslated character, which means it's just ridiculous. It simply is. And this U here is also a mathematical symbol. It means and. And is also, again, like I said, it's a mathematical symbol, all right, which is attached to the tha, okay, attached to the tha. What I want to do is now go to the book of Zechariah 7, Zechariah 12 and 10, excuse me. Zechariah 12 and 10. And we pretty much close it up from there. And I'll springboard off that as we begin to look at this second, or another, a primitive man running alongside of Adam. 12 and 10. 12 and 10. 12 and 10. 12 and 20. 10, 10. And it says, and I will pour upon the house of Dawood and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the set apart spirit and of supplication, and they shall look to me. Now, what I found interesting is, and it said, and they shall look to me, whom they have pierced. And we in the Hebrew community, we say that him is referring to the Messiah, whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourn for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. The firstborn, again, is going back to the word Bekor, or Reshit, or Resh. All of these words are synonymous with one another. But what I also found interesting about this whole thing, when they say they should look to me, whom they have pierced, between the words me and whom, we have the symbol, the Aleph Tav. When you read that in Hebrew, between the hem and the hem and the to me and the whom is the Aleph Tav symbol. And what the Aleph Tav symbol does, it's like the credibility of a letter. Just like when the president writes a letter, it needs a stamp of approval. It lets you know that this letter is coming to you in authority. And that's what the Aleph Tav symbol does. The Aleph Tav symbol lets you know that it's been authenticated by this symbol, and that symbol represents authority. So again, between the whom and the me, whom they have pierced, we have the symbol Aleph Tav. Okay, and it's mentioned in the book of Genesis alone, along with the U, 878 times, and it must be identified. All right, it must be identified. And Yashra'al, I pray that this lesson has been a blessing, all right, that you were able to get something out of it. And again, the whole purpose of this is that we need to challenge rabbinical thinking, all right, in writings, in their teachings, all right. The Qumran community is basically where I'm leaning towards, all right, when we begin to look at the LXX, the Greek Septuagint, how that was translated with the 70 elders and 70 days with Ptolemy Philadelphius, and seeing how they're keeping the festivals of Yahuwah, and how this community didn't even want to be involved in what was going on in Jerusalem, because everything was corrupt in Jerusalem, even the priesthood. All right, everything was corrupt there. And again, these individuals wanted to live a set-apart life. All right, so again, if there's any questions regarding anything, leave a message and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. And with that, Yashra'al, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom. May Yahuwah continue to bless you, be with you. I pray for the Mishpachah. I pray for all those that desire to do the Father's will, that He keep you safe and sound through these troublous times that we're facing. And with that, I'm going to say Ladia Tov, and I'll see you the next time on the Shabbat. Peace and blessings, Yashra'al.